Welcome to the story of a broken and defeated boy called Kiska. Living a life of discrimination in his village, Kiska tries to elope with his one and only childhood friend. Unfortunately, his happiness is taken away when a bunch of delinquents unalive his girlfriend, and even pin the blame on him. Kiska is sent to the most dangerous dungeon as a punishment, where he discovers a skill that seems like a blessing at first, but is a curse that makes his life even more miserable. Do you think his traumatized life will get any better? Watch until the end to find out. The misfortunes of an ordinary village boy begin in the confines of Katarov village, where he was born and raised. The village boasted a legendary S-rank dungeon, after which it acquired its name. The hopeful and ambitious adventurers desperately wanted to conquer this dungeon, making the village crowded. Enter Kiska, a lonesome boy who works as a farmer. He frowns, having learned his field has been destroyed. A bunch of goonies accompany the head of the village's son, Darga. Darga, who seems like your average trust fund baby in a fantasy world, howls at Kiska for his poor yield. Kiska can't even object to this clown, even though Darga is the one who actually destroyed his field. The helpless boy apologizes, knowing he can't speak up against them. A special class of people exists in this country called the Alks. They boast silver hair, and are typically bullied by the rest of the villagers. This is due to the fact that an Alks betrayed his kind to help the demons, which led to a terrible reputation for the people as a whole. An infuriated Darga charges his fist and punches the boy's face. Kiska has no choice but to get beaten up by Darga's men. The three of them waste on the poor boy, who endures the hardship. After getting beat up, Kiska walks around the village, where he sees Namia. She realizes he got bullied, because it shows on his face how badly he got beaten up. Namia comforts Kiska and patches his face. She's Kiska's trustworthy childhood friend, and the only person in the village who accepts him. A concerned Namia questions why people hate the young boy so much. Kiska frowns, thinking that it's just his hair that has become his demise. Instead of judging him like the others, Namia praises Kiska's silver hair. Kiska is astonished, and remembers that his hair has only brought misfortune. Despite that, Namia accepts him fully. After a slight pause, Namia reveals shocking news. She's destined to marry Darga. Kiska's face shows horror, knowing what that means. He tries to congratulate her, which surprises Namia. The girl ponders if he is truly right with the decision, and if he plans to live in the same village for a long time. Kiska has no plans of leaving, but Namia is insistent that he should, because he gains nothing from the wretched people of this village. Kiska states that there is no other place where he can stay. Namia clasps his hand and begs Kiska to flee the village with her. She has savings that they could use to run away in the meantime. Kiska questions if she is truly serious about doing this in such a way. Nama's face is disgusted, as she claims she has no intentions of marrying a man like Darga. In that brief moment, Kiska confesses his love for Namia, kissing under the beautiful sky. That night, Kiska is glad that he and Namia get to be the ones to flee from the disastrous village that has treated them so callously. Kiska is overjoyed, knowing his life will only get better from here. However, under the moonlight, the boy hears a calling for help. Kiska recognizes Namia's voice and immediately rushes to save her from danger. When Kiska arrives there, he sees enough to crush any guy. Darga and his men were having their way with her, and they questioned Kiska's presence. Kiska tried to investigate the matter, but it was already too late. An annoyed Kiska delivers a thunderous punch across the delinquent's face. However, Darga hits him back twice as hard, rendering him in immense pain. Kiska gets beat by all three of them yet again, while Namia begs them to stop. Darga questions why Kiska's here to begin with, since Namia's his fiancée for the keeping. Kiska can't even speak. Darga decides to torture the boy by literally ripping the boy's nails. Kiska screams in agony as they continue to torture him. Namia begs Darga to stop, in exchange for telling the truth. Kiska begs Namia to stop, only to get decked in the face again. Kiska's clinging to despair, desperately hoping Namia doesn't spill anything about their plans. However, he begins to lose consciousness upon getting struck again and again. The last he sees of Namia is her revealing their plan. Namia's words infuriated Darga, who strangled the chick to death. Kiska's final memory of Namia was her smile. The following day, Kiska is the one presented in court, instead of the real culprits responsible for Namia's death. The court judges that he will be sent to the Katarov dungeon as punishment. The miserable boy stands in ruin, knowing that the love of his life just got killed, and he has to be blamed for it. Darga's actions were ultimately pinned on the helpless boy, who couldn't muster the courage to fend for himself. Kiska tried to persuade the people, but it was of no use. Darga's testimony was seen as more believable because of his ranking as the son of the head of the village. Kiska's execution is inevitably on its way. The guards free him of the ropes, knowing that he'll be dead, despite the fact that is because no one has survived the Katarov dungeon in this manner. The boy is pushed into the teleportation circle. Kiska is engulfed in hatred, and his emotions remind him of gruesome memories. Nothing goes the boy's way, and it only brews hatred inside of him. Kiska finds himself awoken in a kind of dungeon hall. The place is undoubtedly the S-rank dungeon that he has to survive. Kiska hears the growls of a monster from nearby. He spots the rank A monster called Bugbear, who just so happens to spot the human bug as his next victim. This monster is notorious for harboring the downfall of many adventurers, and Kiska is no exception to the rule. Kiska is chased down and nearly crushed by the bugbear's fist. Luckily, he survives its wrath and begs for help. Kiska hears a voice calling out to him in a moment of desperate suddenness. A girl donning black hair has heard his cries and has decided to bestow a skill upon the boy. Kiska is granted the skill save and reset, and then the girl disappears without a simple explanation. Kiska doesn't know how to use the skill to defeat the monster before him. Because of that, he squashes his face with a single punch. Kiska has died, or so you thought. Kiska is still alive. He has returned to life after death, questioning how it even happened. A short recap of the boy's miserable life goes as follows. He was born in the Katarov village, bullied for being an Alks, and thrown into a fight with a strong monster. And now, he's dead. But when things should have ended, they didn't. Kiska questions his senses, knowing that he should have ceased to exist by this point. Unfortunately, before he's comprehended the situation, the bugbear returns and kills him again. Kiska died for the second time, only to wake up yet again. Kiska doesn't know what's going on, knowing he got hit by the bugbear. He gets hammered by the bugbear a third time, once again questioning what is happening. Kiska's return to life is beyond his comprehension. The bugbear kills him a fourth time. Kiska wakes up again with the same thoughts and the same monster behind him. Kiska gets killed again and starts to realize that he's returning to a moment before his death. The skill bestowed upon him by the mysterious girl, called Save and Reset, makes him wonder if it's supposed to kill him endlessly. Instead of seeing it as a beneficial skill, Kiska is horrified and wants to escape death. He doesn't want endless torment, but nothing changes. Kiska is grabbed by the monster when he tries to run, only to get smashed into the nearest wall. Kiska's death is inevitable, as he dies again and again. He tried many things, but the result of his death was ultimately the same. He dies without exception. Kiska is incapable of continuing this endless cycle of death. At this point, he's just begging to get the sweet release of death, knowing he won't feel the same pain. That's when Kiska wonders if he should try to disable the skill and accept his death. He tampers with the system and learns about his skill screen. Unfortunately, Kiska can't find a way to disable the skill. In fact, the second he touches the status screen, he is reminded of his haunting past. Everything and everyone who betrayed him, including the hatred he collected. Kiska doesn't want his hatred to be wiped clean. So, instead of accepting death, Kiska charges right at the bugbear, aiming to launch a counterattack. The bugbear charges a fist like always, but Kiska manages to cling to its body. Despite avoiding the first strike, the bugbear killed him because of their power difference. Kiska is satisfied that he was able to avoid the creature's attack. His current objective is to learn how to avoid the monster's strikes. Kiska knows that the bugbear uses its right arm first. Kiska ducks the attack, and then dodges a hammering fist to the side. Executing these moves with precision, Kiska refuses to try and run, knowing it would be pointless. Kiska maintains his composure, and lures the creature into attacking him again. Having dodged the attack, Kiska slides forth and lands his critical strike on the creature's face. This was the result of his efforts, after dying more than 100 times. Despite his attack, Kiska's fists cannot deal a lethal blow. However, it has given him the chance to escape. Kiska runs as fast as he can, knowing that it will take the monster half a minute to come to its senses. Kiska tries to find equipment that could help him overcome the beast. Treasures are lying around, but he doesn't find anything useful. The bugbear tails him after recovering from the hit. Kiska finds a location he has never stepped into before. Without knowing, Kiska falls into a trapdoor, which leads to a spiky, painful death. Beyond that point, Kiska has died roughly 200 times. He's failed to accept defeat and has garnered experience fighting the bugbear. Kiska targets the creature's eyes for a greater staggering effect. Using that opportunity, Kiska cares for the traps in the dungeon. He arrives at the same location that previously led to his death. Just before the monster can reach for him, Kiska falls, but this time, he manages to survive the trap with a handful of injuries. The bugbear can't jump down, which means Kiska has obtained temporary victory, buying him the time he needs. Kiska navigates through the hidden room, questioning the number of times he has found himself impaled to get to this level. Kiska finally discovers a glimmer of hope. He has found a treasure chest. Kiska opens the chest and obtains a glimmering crystal of wisdom. Kiska is prompted with a skill screen as a reward. He is shocked and wonders what skill would best serve him. Kiska spots that the A-rank skills like healing or fire magic wouldn't be the best, because he would require a fundamental understanding of magic first. He could go down the path of weapons, except the boy doesn't have any. Kiska is left with the choice of the S-rank skills. He is interested in an acceleration skill, but Kiska judges that stealth would boast a greater outcome. Having made his decision, Kiska selects stealth and obtains the skill. However, the boy's expression shifts to horror when he learns that the exit is closed, and he's surrounded by not just one, but an entire group of bugbears. Kiska is baffled, and inevitably dies to the horde as a consequence. The treasure room proved to be another chapter of misery for the boy, as he was beaten by 10 of the creatures at once. He had to do everything all over again, which made it desperate. Despite everything, Kiska manages to step into the same room again. He navigates through the skill list, knowing what skill he has to choose. The bugbears are there to attack him, but Kiska dodges most of their attacks. The skill stealth was useless against the monsters despite being a high-rank skill. However, the skill acceleration made everything different. With this skill, Kiska can destroy one of the bugbears with a single strike. However, the force of the attack has ripped the bone from his hand. This then leads to a gruesome beating from the rest of the bugbears. Kiska discovers the hard way that his body is severely incapable of handling the skill. Returning to the same location again, Kiska dodges the first bugbear and tries to make progress. While he's busy in thought, Kiska is struck again. After 225 failed attempts, Kiska arrived to conquer the room once again. Kiska's energy has been drained. He chooses the acceleration skill yet again. Kiska turns to face the monsters, who are ready to attack him at once. Utilizing his speed, Kiska traversed immense speeds, only to realize that the skill failed him. On his 300th attempt, Kiska still doesn't find any chances of victory. The skill acceleration isn't helping him as much, even when he aims for the critical spots on each of the monsters. The bugbears are surprisingly resilient and continue to attack him despite the pain. Kiska even tried strangling them, but that exposed them to the other monsters who could easily hold on to him. Kiska is starting to succumb to despair because he can't even defeat a single bugbear with his S-rank skills. As his lifeless body topples on the ground, Kiska muses that he can't defeat any of them with his acceleration skill after his merciless attempts. Arriving in the same room again, Kiska takes his time to assess each of the skills. He's lost the motivation to even strike and select any of the skills. Kiska recalls that he'll die if he doesn't do anything to the first bugbear. He is haunted by his despair, yet at the same time, the lingering hatred of the boy makes him want to succeed no matter what. Kiska believes that his hatred is the only thing that has kept him persevering up to this level. Kiska ascertains himself that he will leave the dungeon no matter what, vowing to take revenge upon those who wronged him. As he is thinking of such thoughts, Kiska selects the skill from the skill tab and prepares for battle. Kiska lunges forth to attack the bugbears. This time, he's equipped with taijutsu. Kiska has decided to test out the abilities of each skill and their chances of defeating the bugbear. On his 420th attempt, Kiska seems motivated more than ever. He's gotten ahead by jumping on top of one of the bugbears. His physical strengthening skill isn't too shabby, balancing out his stats. The bugbear grumbles, but Kiska isn't prepared to attack this creature at all. Instead, he targets the bugbear at the front, striking the creature down with a thunderous kick. At that point, Kiska is greeted with a monster elimination skill point. He is shocked because he has just defeated an A-rank monster for the first time. Kiska returns to his system and raises the level of his physical strengthening skill. Kiska's powers massively increased as a result of his hope to defeat the monsters and level up even more. Kiska learns that his physical strengthening skill points have a set requirement. He has to acquire 100 skill points before getting to the next level. Kiska realizes that he would have to defeat nearly every monster here. The despair sets in again, and Kiska ultimately dies. On his 510th attempt, Kiska's emotions spiral as he loses all hope. He now questions why he was handed such a cruel fate. He blames Darga for being placed in his wretched circumstances, which increases his hate for the man. Kiska vows to kill each of the villagers who betrayed him in the end. However, Kiska's thoughts were still grappling with despair. He had already given up on the thought of escaping the dungeon. By accident, he taps the skill Provoke and thinks that the skill is going to be trash. Kiska hopes to die again and awaits the monsters. He decides to test out the skill by swearing at the creatures. However, right after his chant, the bugbear smashes itself to the nearest wall. Kiska is bewildered and tests it out on another bugbear. The result is the same, as the monster punches the nearest bugbear, one of its own. Kiska is shocked to see what's really going on. A moment of happiness sets in, as he realizes that he wasted so much time for nothing. In a way, Kiska is annoyed, but at the same time, he's in the mood to slaughter all of them. Kiska's great despair ends when he challenges the bugbears with his skill. Every time he hollers at one of the creatures, they are forced to attack each other. Kiska manages to make them defeat each other while avoiding any fights by himself. With only 2 creatures remaining, Kiska calls out to both of them and dodges their attack at the last moment. As a result, they crush each other, and the only one standing is Kiska. The boy has risen victorious despite his hardships and has conquered the treasure room at last. Kiska's adventures in the dungeon continue when he finds himself struggling against a headless monster. After finding an exit from the treasure room, Kiska was led into a new level of the dungeon. However, the monster called the Headless Mule has become his nemesis, having killed him 10 times on its own. Kiska did get luck, however, as his respawn point was reset to be updated in the treasure room. He doesn't have to go crazy anymore, having to fight the bugbears that drained his energy. Kiska felt better after making some progress. He goes around searching for any areas left unexplored. Kiska is shocked when he discovers 3 teleportation circles. Kiska wonders if he should use one of them to advance ahead. He steps onto a teleportation circle, deciding to stay in the middle. Kiska wonders if his decision will lead to his downfall, but it doesn't matter since he can respawn. Suddenly, Kiska is teleported to another long hallway. Kiska sets his sights on going ahead until he discovers the same mysterious girl from before. The girl seems to be trapped in some kind of capsule barrier. Kiska worriedly touches the barrier, freeing the girl as a consequence. Kiska tends to the girl who fell on the ground. The girl woke up and realized that he saved her. Kiska asks about her identity, knowing that she gave him the skill. The girl introduces herself as Ageha Tsubaki, an ex-hero who was sealed in this dimension. Kiska grapples with the information and introduces himself promptly. Ageha fancies his name and requests that he bend down. When Kiska lowers his body, Ageha proceeds to enjoy an abrupt kiss with him. It is her way of thanking Kiska for saving her. Kiska is far too confused by her intentions. Ageha asks if he is truly interested in escaping the dungeon. Kiska confirms that he is bent on escaping. Hearing those words, Ageha grabs his arm and takes Kiska away, vowing to help him escape. When the 2 of them arrive in front of the Headless Mule, Ageha slices the creature to pieces. Kiska is amazed by her incredible skill. Ageha wonders if she's strong, and Kiska agrees, which makes her really happy. Kiska reflects that he might have a chance of surviving the dungeon if he teams up with Ageha. Ageha proceeds to collect the remains of the Headless Mule. Kiska questions what's really happening. Ageha explains she has the ability to store objects for later use with her item box skill. Kiska recalls reading about it from the skill menu before. Ageha states that they should continue moving ahead. Kiska asks where they are headed. Ageha wants to take him to the dungeon's mini-boss. Kiska is unprepared and bewildered to fight an actual threat. Even though he's afraid, Ageha is confident, and even thanks Kiska for unsealing her. Having arrived before the door of the dungeon's mini-boss, Ageha promises to fight for Kiska's sake. Kiska is happy and tells her that she's the one who made him survive up to this point. They enter the room to challenge the boss. Beyond them lies a monster called the S-rank Golem. This gigantic creature scares the crap out of Kiska. The monster roars, while Ageha directs the boy to get behind. Ageha charges ahead with the thought of protecting him. Ageha is capable of landing a few hits, and even dodging some of the golem's attacks. Kiska is impressed by Ageha's absurd strength. In fact, at this point, Kiska is convinced that she will overwhelm the golem. That is until the poor girl trips over a stupid rock and eats a punch directly from the golem. The full force of the attack renders Ageha in a tight spot, despite her strengthened defenses. Ageha's in a pinch, leaving Kiska to use his provocation skill. Instead of the skill working to his expectations, Kiska literally gets his body smashed into the wall. Ageha succumbs to the cruel reality because she has been unable to protect him with her powers. However, Kiska is actually still alive. Instead of eating the punch, he dodged it, as that is the only thing he learned from his previous battles. Kiska instructs Ageha to make use of the opportunity since the golem's arm is stuck. Ageha lunges forth to finish the battle. She activates her sacred sword technique, unleashing the Dragon Slayer Slash. The attack slices the S-rank monster in half, relieving Kiska. Ageha jumps onto him in happiness. With their teamwork, they have successfully defeated the mini-boss. Kiska has become an optimist for the future, knowing that it will only get better from here on out. Or at least that is what he expected at the time of meeting Ageha. After the defeat of the S-class golem monster, Kiska and Ageha progressed through a secret passage. They were hoping for an exit, which Ageha seemed to discover. The room astonished Kiska immensely because it's furnished. Ageha explains that the creature might be a vampire that they're dealing with. Ageha confirms that the vampire Judith terrorizes this dungeon. Kiska questions if it is really fine for them to enjoy their time in such a room. Ageha isn't too worried and wants to spend her time resting for the day. Kiska doesn't really feel good about any of this. Ageha tells him to sit with her since she's interested in talking to him. Kiska follows suit and sits next to her. After a moment of silence, Kiska asks if he's being weird. Ageha is surprised that he even asked that. Kiska wants to know if she judges him about his silver hair. Ageha thinks for a moment and actually praises his hair instead. She thinks it carries a magical allure to it. Kiska is happy because, up until this point, no one had complimented his hair except for Namia. Ageha has joined that list, in fact. Ageha drops the bombshell, revealing she's from a different world. A curious Kiska probes her for information, since he has never heard of such a thing. Ageha asks if he doesn't believe her, and doesn't find herself surprised by his answer. She clings to him in a natural way, and Kiska doesn't feel repulsed because he likes her. Kiska's stomach kills the mood with a loud grumble. Ageha realizes that he's hungry, and that he's not gotten the chance to eat food ever since he was trapped inside the dungeon. Ageha decides to use the meat of the monsters that she collected, and even wishes to cook for all of his meals. Kiska sees Ageha busy at work, making a delicious meal. Kiska tries it and actually doesn't feel disgusted. Ageha is happy, while Kiska thinks that he's got no choice in the matter. Ageha's usage of herbs made the food quite delicious. Kiska hasn't gotten the chance to eat proper food up until this point. He was actually caught off guard by how delicious it was. Ageha is shocked when she sees the boy crying. After the meal, Kiska tells her that he's tired and wants to go to bed. The thing is, there's only one bed, so Kiska is prepared to sleep on the couch. Ageha doesn't want that to happen and explains that they should sleep on the bed together. Kiska fumbles his words and recommends otherwise. Kiska winds up sleeping on the couch while Ageha rests on the bed. The boy is glad to have received the help of a hero and thinks that he might be able to escape the dungeon. Kiska feels pathetic, leaving Ageha to carry the burden of it all. Suddenly, Ageha jumps on top and forces her way with him. She's revealed to be a love-struck maniac who is fond of Kiska. The confused boy questions why she's reacting in such a way. Ageha reveals that he's the one who became responsible for saving her. It is revealed that Ageha has been entrapped and sealed for centuries, waiting for someone to help her. With the best of her powers, she gave everyone the same skill so that they could one day come to her aid. In the end, each one of them failed the task and couldn't save her until it came to Kiska. Kiska is her prince, her knight in shining armor, the one who helped her survive. Ageha loses control of her body, but Kiska is not in the mood to let her do what she wants. Kiska denies her love, stating that he already loves someone else. Ageha is devastated at first, but still jumps on top of him. The girl has lost herself to the madness of love and has no problems being someone's second. Kiska is struck horrified as he remembers the treatment Namia received. In disgust, Kiska pushes her away and asks if she's alright. Unfortunately, Kiska shoved her a little too hard. Ageha apologized for her actions and decided to sleep without another word. Kiska resumed his own sleep, but felt guilty, acknowledging the fact that he requires Ageha's aid in this battle. Kiska thinks that he should put his terrible feelings behind him and work together. That is until Kiska wakes up the following day. To his utter shock, the lifeless body of the hero hovers in front of him. Kiska is traumatized when he sees that Ageha has chosen to take her life. He questions if he's evil for pushing her away. Kiska's poor life gets even worse with this revelation. In haste, he runs away from the situation. Kiska creeps out of the passage, claiming that it was all an accident. In his haste, Kiska is hunted and attacked by the headless mules. As a consequence, Kiska is killed. In the end, he only came this far because of Ageha's help. Kiska thinks that he boasts no chance of survival on his own. Now that he has resurrected in the same treasure room location, Kiska ponders what truly happened. He thinks that the rejection led to Ageha's demise. Kiska doesn't know what he should have done at that point. He doesn't want to accept Ageha's love, knowing that Namia is his true love. Except only one of them is alive at this point. Kiska thinks that he should accept her love this time around. He frees her from the chains, hoping Ageha will help him on this journey. This time, Ageha boasts an angry, almost offensive expression. Kiska tries to explain who he is, but Ageha isn't having any of it. She shuns him away, acting completely differently than before, despite looking the same. Kiska questions if the one he is talking to is Ageha. This makes her realize that it isn't their first encounter. Ageha also knows that Kiska crossed him last time around. Kiska tries to clear up his name, but the demonic girl chokes him and thinks that it must be the reason he smells bad. Ageha reminds him that he's not going to rewind everything as he pleases. This is because the actions reach the soul, so Ageha will know. Kiska questions who Ageha truly is. Ageha continues to choke him and tells the boy that Ageha doesn't want to talk to him. Kiska is out here dying, not knowing what she even means by those words. Ageha reminds Kiska that this will be the last time she will say this. Her final warning is for him to never get involved with her again. With that said, Ageha crushed Kiska's neck, sending him back to the treasure room. Kiska is now horrified because he feels like the girl has two personalities. He is deathly afraid of dealing with her beyond this point. Knowing that Kiska is going to die if he ever associates himself with Ageha, he decides to venture on his own. The problem is, he can't really wander as he pleases on his own. Kiska wants to find another way and reaches the same teleportation room. This time, he tries to use the teleportation circle on the left. Deploying that, Kiska arrives in a hall similar to Ageha's with only one path. Kiska walks ahead until he finds a girl sitting there waiting for him. She takes a sip of her tea and finds it astonishing that an intruder has made it past the level. What Kiska can't comprehend is the fact that a normal-looking girl is spending the rest of her life in the most dangerous dungeon. This makes him even more curious about her identity. The girl questions what he's here for in the first place. Kiska states that he wants a way out of the dungeon. The girl is amused, but considers his attitude impolite. She is revealed to be the great ancestor of the vampires and doesn't really fancy his approach. The vampire slits a bit of her skin before impaling Kiska with a piercing weapon. Kiska falls to his doom as the vampire enjoys tormenting him until he's dead. With his death, Kiska wakes up again. He is now haunted by the memories of two girls, who are equally crazy in the head. The boy faces death again. Kiska remembers Ageha's warning of the vampiric girl and realizes that he's actually dealing with someone powerful. Judith may dress like an innocent girl, but she's a monster through and through. Kiska's only option is to test out the final teleportation circle. He is teleported to a different hall and hopes that this one is better than the previous experiences. Here, Kiska discovers a blade, a sword of black that screams, "Don't pick me up unless you're a villain." Kiska wonders if the sword is truly powerful, because it could help him climb out of the dungeon once and for all. Kiska reaches for the blade, and then he feels unending pain throughout his body. The pain is unrelenting and torments him, but Kiska can't even let go of it. After surviving for a few minutes, Kiska succumbed to his unconscious state. When the boy woke up, he discovered that he was still alive. Kiska found out the hard way that the sword actually merged with his arm. He now wields a parasitic sword that has become a part of his body. Kiska can't even move his arm because of its heavy weight. He doesn't know what he should be doing right now. After walking his way back, Kiska is in a pinch because a werewolf monster has appeared before him. He thinks his day is getting even worse and he's about to die. Suddenly, the sword acts on its own and forces its way through the monster's chest before slicing and dicing it to pieces. Kiska defeated the monster with such ease, but it wasn't even his own power. The blade acted on its own, but even with that consideration, Kiska thinks that it's a great development. He is ready to do whatever it takes to succeed. Kiska defeats a few more monsters and drowns himself in his own power. Arriving at the mini-boss room, Kiska remembers his first battle with the S-rank golem monster. However, this time, when he steps inside, Kiska is shocked to learn that his opponent is an S-rank griffin monster. The creature tries to squash the little boy beneath its feet. Thankfully, Kiska's blade is so strong that it helps him evade the blow. The sword blocked the griffin's attack. Kiska relied on the abilities of his weapon in an effort not to become a distraction. Finding an opportune moment, Kiska cleaved the griffin's head clean. With one decisive slash, the boy stood victorious. His new weapon looks promising enough to defeat even more enemies. Kiska notes that there is a hidden door, just like the outcome of their battle with the golem. By this point, he's confident in escaping this dungeon. However, as he traverses ahead, his body is starting to take the hit. The sword is eating away at his flesh. Finally, Kiska sees an unfamiliar visitor. Judith stands before him, commenting on his growth. Kiska questions what she's doing here. Kiska questions what she's on about. Judith is surprised, because he's still in control of his body. Judith's only enjoyable purpose is to dispose of the boy from the dungeon. She wants to destroy the sword that's taking over its host. Kiska is shocked to hear of this. Judith explains that the sword is a puppet player, a blade of destruction that grows in strength by devouring the people and other monsters. She left the sword on its own, not expecting humans to come in contact with it. Judith rips her arm and intends to kill him. Kiska is utterly shocked by what he's just seen happen before him. What he sees before him is a monster inside the body of a girl. Judith converts her torn arm into a blade and politely suggests Kiska die. Saying those words, she lunges forth and attacks Kiska. Judith is shocked when Kiska is able to hold his own. Kiska is confident that he can push her back with his weapon. Judith is impressed that he's able to hang in there despite this level. Kiska thinks that he's got a shot at victory. Judith decides to get serious and tosses her blade into the air before chanting, "Shallow rainstorm." The weapon explodes and unleashes countless spikes that impale Kiska's body. Judith was forced to use this technique in this circumstance and managed to kill Kiska for good. Kiska wakes up once more in the treasure room. He's at a pause, not knowing what to do. The perplexities of his situation continue to worsen. Kiska knows that his options consist of encountering Ageha, who will kill him. His second option is the vampire Judith, who will also kill him without any hearing. The third and final option is the parasitic sword, which, although it grants him control over immense power, will still be killed at the hands of Judith. Kiska is at a loss and thinks that he's got to swing the situation in his favor. He is certain that he has to make use of the parasitic sword, somehow defeating Judith and clearing the dungeon. The problem is he doesn't know how he's going to make it happen. Remembering Judith's own words, Kiska wonders if he can allow the parasitic sword to reach its full potential. He thinks that he might have a shot at defeating her if the sword is leveled up. Kiska hastily makes his advances. This time, he has a lot of time to spare. Kiska begs Judith not to arrive in the same location. Luckily, she's not there at all. Kiska is happy until he finds that he is trapped in a massive nest of werewolves. Unfortunately, he's the danger to them and not the other way around. Kiska uses this as the perfect opportunity to slay the monsters in order to gain greater power. When Judith arrives, she's quite impressed because Kiska's blade allows his blade to fester so much. Judith sees a man barely in control of his own body. Kiska can't even recognize the one standing before him. Judith smiles, realizing that Kiska's consciousness has been hit massively. Judith claims to want to kill Kiska without change. After their battle, Kiska died once again. He is tormented because the reality is, even when he leveled up the sword to its maximum level, Judith defeated him without fail. The sword took over him completely, and he would always die. He has 3 routes waiting for him, all 3 of which are fatal for his life. Kiska thinks that he's only got one last chance now. He no longer fears death anymore. Kiska risks his chances by going down Judith's route. There, he sees the vampiric girl, who says the same things she said once before. Remembering how their previous interaction went, Kiska went down on his knees and politely asked for a favor. Judith is rather surprised by the man. Kiska begged Judith to train him so that he could become a great disciple of hers. Hearing such strange words coming from a human's mouth, the vampire is intrigued as she dons her signature smile. Kiska feels happy that things are going his way. That is when Judith questions what she's getting at the end of training him. Kiska rounds up and says that he will do anything she asks of him, following each and every command. However, Judith is actually pretty undermined by that. Instead, she finds him disgusting and proceeds to kill Kiska again. Kiska may have died, but he thinks he's on the right path. He is convinced that he might be able to survive with this route. Escaping the dungeon requires that he becomes stronger than his current level, which is why he wants to become her disciple. Knowing that she's ruthless beyond comprehension, Kiska has to figure out a way to learn Judith's true desire for a chance to become her disciple. The same interaction follows again. Kiska plays around with the idea of helping her confide her feelings, since she's been alone in this dungeon for a long time. However, the vampire feels bored and claims she doesn't feel lonely at all. Judith is about to kill him again, but Kiska begs the vampire that he's got experience. He tries to achieve her interest by requesting to build things, but Judith states that she's already way more experienced than him. Left with no options, Kiska doesn't really have anything to offer to the vampire, who towers him on every level. Judith prepares to kill him again. Kiska stands up to state that he wants to get out of the dungeon no matter the cause. He explains his story, how he was wronged and ended up in the wretched dungeon. Kiska's honest confession doesn't really spark her interest. That is until he declares that he wants to take revenge on the villagers. Judith is alarmed as cruel words seep out of his mouth. He begs for the vampires' help in massacring the village. At last, Judith actually finds interest in his explanation, purely because of the fact that she's curious about his development. Judith agrees, but reminds him that he has a test to clear before becoming her apprentice. Judith asks if he used a teleportation circle. Kiska confirms that he did. Judith tells him about the uniqueness of the dungeon, and how stepping onto any one of the teleportation circles means that one can't return. However, Judith knows her tricks and actually knows a way to return and access the other routes. Kiska is shocked to learn that there are hidden passages in so many places. They arrive at a dead end where Judith finds the parasitic sword. Judith claims that it's quite a troublesome weapon. She wants to dispose of it, but of course she's unable to make contact since it's a parasite. Kiska questions what he is to do with that information. Judith tells him that he has to defeat the sword's parasitic nature by learning how to control it. That is the only way he is going to pass. Kiska questions if such a thing is even possible. Judith assures him that he will fail, but she's going to put him through the pain regardless. Kiska tells her that he'll follow through. Judith instructs him to grab the sword by its blade instead of the hilt. Kiska does as he is told, and even though he feels so much pain, it's still a lot less than when he grabbed it by the hilt. Kiska questions the next step of instructions. Judith orders him to swallow the sword. She happily instructs him to do something so outrageous, but Kiska has no choice except to follow through. He swallows the sword to the best of his ability. Kiska drifts off into his consciousness, where he sees the spirit of the parasitic sword. The sword questions the boy, who wants to become his master. Kiska questions their location, to which the puppet sword explains they're in the deep world. Kiska commands the sword to lend its power to him. Surprisingly, the sword simply accepts. Kiska wonders if it is really so easy to do that, but the spirit of the sword isn't so surprised. Kiska had anticipated the sword to deny him, but in fact, it felt fond of Kiska's soul because it sensed something familiar. The sword decides to ally itself with the boy's body, declaring him his new master. Kiska regains consciousness. Judith is pleasantly surprised that he's able to come this far. Kiska's reaction is the exact same, having controlled the sword. Judith congratulates him for passing the test. With this, he became the official apprentice of Judith, the progenitor of vampires. Beyond that day, their intertwined lives began. He became Judith's disciple, spending his nights in the same room where he once rested with Ageha. Kiska comes to meet his master, who is enjoying her sleep. Judith remarks that the boy woke up rather early. Kiska gets carried away with her looks, while Judith emphasizes that they'll begin their training from today on. Kiska declares that he will withstand her harsh training. Later, Judith inquires about the kind of skills he has. Kiska tells her about his provocation skill, but actually keeps the knowledge of his reset skill a secret. Judith helps him travel through hidden passages and tells him that she knows everything about the dungeon. Kiska is amazed to learn that she's been here for 1,000 years. He thinks he has made the right choice. Judith leads him to another treasure room, where she wants Kiska to gain even better skills. Since Judith is aware of each and every treasure chest in the dungeon, she's pretty much broken. Kiska opens the treasure box and is met with the skill screen again. Kiska remembers the screen to be similar to the one he saw before. He spots a few different skills that he hasn't seen before. Kiska requests his master's aid in the selection process. Judith believes swordsmanship would be ideal since he has a sword merged in his body. Kiska will be required to summon the blade, so it would be best to go for that. Kiska selects the option and acquires swordsmanship skills. Judith tells him that they'll have to head to the deepest point of the dungeon to acquire his final skill. Kiska is stunned to hear that. They travel to the deepest point, where they aren't met with any enemies along the way. Kiska feels uncertain about coming here. The treasure chest awaits before his eyes. Judith tells him that this box is one of luck, since he'll be able to acquire only one skill of a woman who has infinite skills. Kiska proceeds to pop open the treasure chest. He acquires attribute granting as a skill. Kiska turns to Judith for information, who is a little undermined because the skill requires magic to be utilized. Kiska thinks he messed up pretty badly, but Judith tells him that he will improve in other ways. They are planning to return to the hideout when Kiska questions the purpose of the giant door. Judith explains that the room is where the boss of the dungeon resides, and it is also the pathway to escape. Kiska realizes that he has to defeat the boss to attain his freedom. He has finally located his one-way ticket out of here. Kiska asks if Judith is capable of defeating the boss monster. Judith claims that the monster residing inside is actually of SSS rank. Ever since the monster spawned inside, Judith herself hasn't been able to leave the dungeon for many decades. Kiska realizes that his final opponent is so difficult that not even Judith can defeat it. Judith wants to train Kiska up to her level to become even stronger. She wants to team up with him in order to defeat the boss monster using both of their powers. Saying those words, Judith directs him to return to their training. The first training he shares with Judith is how to drain one's blood in one's body and manipulate it as a weapon. Judith demonstrates the use of the ability, but Kiska is hauntingly well aware of how it works, because he's already been killed by it many times. Judith procures a blood weapon, and explains that the weapon changes depending on the amount of blood used. Kiska is impressed by her ability to control blood freely. Judith tells him that he's capable of doing the same with the sword he possesses inside his body. With her instructions, the boy focuses energy inside of his body. He summons his black blade and actually acquires it as a skill. Kiska shocks himself with the weapon, while Judith praises him. Kiska is glad because he'll finally possess the ability to mow down his opponents. Judith decides to assign him a mission. The task is simple. Kiska has to attack Judith relentlessly until he can land a single blow on the vampire. Kiska is intimidated because he doesn't want to spare against the demon. Judith tells him that she wouldn't be so cruel as to take his life during training. Kiska corrects himself and states that he doesn't want to hit a girl. This peeves her to an insane amount. Judith reminds him that she can easily heal her wounds, so it's a question whether or not he can even hurt her at all. Kiska tries to remedy the situation after having provoked the vampire. Judith leaps forth to test his abilities. Kiska has to respond promptly as he blocks the first strike. Judith turns around to deliver another slash, which he barely manages to evade. Kiska is a little scared because, at this point, this feels more like he's about to be assassinated in a training session. Judith unleashes her fury by attacking him with brute force. Kiska's swordsmanship has been keeping him in the battle for now, but Judith far surpasses him in might. She's capable of doing so much, which makes it troublesome for Kiska. Kiska thinks he's about to get killed, but he has to find a way to succeed in his task. Judith attacks him until Kiska is able to counter with an attack of his own. Judith easily evades, while Kiska is reminded how she used a bigger sword before. The only reason he's hanging in this battle is because she's holding back immensely. Knowing that he boasts better chances, Kiska anticipates her attack and blocks it. Capitalizing on this moment, Kiska releases a counterattack aimed directly at Judith's head. Even though Judith is able to evade the brunt of the attack, her arm gets sliced a little bit. Judith is absolutely speechless by this feat. Kiska, on the other hand, apologizes for hurting her. Judith tells him that it's just a mere scratch that won't hurt her at all. Kiska remembers that this is the same girl who tore off her limb for a fight. Judith is impressed and praises him for completing the task. Kiska is glad and thanks her. He feels his own growth after each battle and firmly believes it is the right move to become her disciple. Judith comments that Kiska's fighting style deviates from that of a mortal man, which makes her wonder if he has some fighting experience. Kiska remembers the haunting number of battles that he's faced and chooses to lie directly to her face. Judith is actually impressed that he's a talented fighter. As his training continues, Kiska has to face 3 headless mules. He remembers the secret passages that he learned from his master. In this habitat, Kiska stands to face each of the creatures as part of their practical training session. The battle begins with Kiska getting attacked from all directions. Judith intervenes in the fight and instructs him to tighten his arms to fight in a compact manner. Heeding her advice, Kiska adjusts his fighting stance and moves accordingly. This time, he fares a far better chance of blocking the monster's attacks. Kiska surprises himself with his own performance. Judith commands him to finish the battle, since the monsters before him are deprived of magic energy. The crazy vampire chick directs him to be flashy in his performance. Kiska proceeds to destroy each headless mule, one after the other, with precise and clean strikes. Having defeated all 3 of the monsters, Kiska remains at the top. Judith praises him, and he accepts her compliments heartily. Kiska tells her that she is the one who made him progress to this level. Judith claims that if he died here, they would basically never even get out of the dungeon. Judith intends to make him even stronger. Kiska complies with the thought and gets awarded many skill points for subjugating numerous monsters. Judith advises him to raise his level. Kiska does exactly that, as he checks the screen and realizes that he has unlocked all 5 of his skill slots. He feels proud of himself, but the question remains as to what skill he should level up. Knowing that he's gotten this far because of his swordsmanship and puppet sword, Kiska is tempted to level up either of those abilities. Kiska comes to a decision to raise his swordsmanship level and wants to save more skill points for the fact. Judith agrees with his decision and concludes the training session. Returning to the hideout, Judith anticipates while Kiska prepares something for her. After the long wait, Kiska reflects that his job isn't to make tea, but actually satiate the bloodthirsty vampire with monster blood. Judith enjoys the delicious taste and has an obsession with teacups. Even though Kiska would never want to try monster blood himself, he's surprised that Judith drinks it like it's the best thing out there. Kiska already prepared dinner for them. He came up with a headless mule steak, but the vampire wasn't too intrigued to try it out. Kiska tells her that he doesn't have many seasonings to go off of. He shows her that they have salad, except Judith isn't a big salad fan either. Kiska tells the vampire that she should eat her nutrients, as stupid as that sounds. Judith has to remind the idiot that she's a vampire who thrives on blood. Kiska tells her to wait and comes up with dryad fruits. Judith makes the widest smile, like a little child. Kiska wanted them to rest for a few more days for better taste, but he grew considerate of Judith. They sit together and enjoy the meal. Kiska judges that the seasoning could have been better. Judith tells him they can acquire the ingredients if they escape the dungeon. Kiska asks her about the times she could freely leave the dungeon of her own will. Judith explains that the dungeons are comfortable for vampires, which is why she stays here. Kiska realizes that the SSS rank boss must be the main reason she's stuck in this place. Judith confirms the fact, but also states that there existed a room with a teleportation circle, allowing her to leave of her own will. Kiska is shocked to learn of such a thing. Judith tells him that she knew about the teleportation circle's existence until, one day, it was destroyed. She couldn't go outside after that. Kiska asks about the person who destroyed it, but Judith doesn't know who it was. Then suddenly, Judith concludes that the culprit must have been the one who sealed Ageha. Kiska is rendered speechless hearing the word Ageha. Judith has reason to believe that the one who caused Ageha's demise is responsible for entrapping them inside. Kiska questions if Judith knows about Ageha. Judith confirms that Ageha is a great being, a hero in fact. She is the one who literally subjugated the Demon King. Kiska is literally stunned to hear such words. Kiska remembers the famous story that followed the subjugation of the Demon Lord by a brave warrior. However, the warrior in his world was called Elysium. Kiska wonders what it could possibly mean if Ageha is the real hero to defeat the Demon Lord. Kiska is prompted to ask why Ageha is sealed in the dungeon. Judith wonders about it for a moment, but she does advise him never to break Ageha's seal. That is the one thing he must never stray against, as Ageha possesses the powers to destroy the entire world. Kiska accepts her concerns, but the fact is, he already freed Ageha twice before. Kiska desperately hopes that it doesn't really cause problems for him later. Kiska feels the need to prompt Judith with a question. He questions if Judith ate his fruits as well. The vampire happily denies it, even though Kiska knows for a fact that she did it. At this point, Kiska is convinced that this is a master-slave relationship. Kiska's training sessions only ramped up in progression. Months passed, in fact, and Kiska continued to obtain skill points to level up. The two of them were happy as his swordsmanship progressed to level 3. Judith happily conveys that the two of them might flee the dungeon very soon. Kiska vows to become strong enough to help Judith reach the outside world. The vampire feels delighted by his words. Kiska states that he will skin the monsters for their meal. Judith intends to return to her hideout in the meantime. After he skins the monsters with his blade, Kiska returns to the hideout as well, but what he sees confuses him quite a bit. The vampiric goddess stands before him undefended. Kiska gets flustered and runs off apologizing. Judith calls for his name in anger, but it's only to make fun of his reaction. She wanted to scare the living daylights out of him. Kiska turns to his cooking station for their next meal. After eating dinner and winding up with the dishes, he tells Judith that he'll be off to bed. That is when Judith stops him and requests that he sleep with her. Kiska is prompted to ask the reason, but Judith doesn't really have any. She wants someone to accompany her, that is all. Kiska wants to return to his room because it's not something serious. The cute vampire calls him rude for acting this way. Kiska knows that he will feel guilty if he doesn't accept her demands. Kiska accepts her offer at once, making her feel delighted. The both of them stumble onto the bed. Kiska thinks that there shouldn't be anything wrong with sleeping like this. Staring at the ceiling, Judith talks about their first ever encounter. For Kiska, it was actually haunting knowing what he went through. But now, it's actually quite true. Kiska reveals that Judith wanted to kill him when they first met. Judith is surprised that he knew about that little detail. Kiska can only get away with such an excuse because she is under the impression he can see through the vampire. Judith reasons that she has only ever met people who wanted to kill her, which is why she's always on guard. Kiska reminds her that he's not like that at all. Judith is glad that he doesn't hate her and questions his thoughts. Kiska calls her beautiful, but the vampire is desperate to get an answer from him. In the end, Kiska spills the beans and gets called a pervert for it. Judith makes him a very interesting offer and asks what he would do. Kiska is alarmed because his heart is going crazy. He doesn't want things to happen like they did with Namia or Ageha. Kiska tells Judith that his life is pretty messed up right now. Judith agrees. Kiska tells Judith that he's afraid of living a comfortable life and inevitably losing his vengeful self. Kiska had cursed his fate when he died repeatedly. Now that he's strong enough to beat monsters with a cute girl, Kiska doesn't know what will happen. Kiska actually confesses that he loves Judith, but he's not nearly ready for something like this. Judith proceeds to kiss him. Kiska reflects that he has to take care of a number of things to advance ahead. Judith wants to wrap up their little affair after they've ensured the end of his revenge. Judith is the only person who understands him. Suddenly, Judith's head goes flying with a slash. Kiska is traumatized by the sight of her lifeless body remaining on top of him. What stands before Kiska is Ageha, who is furious that Kiska ended up liking Judith instead of her. The demonic yandere is pissed beyond hell. Ageha continues to lash out at the boy. The murderous hero stands before him while he questions how it is even possible. Kiska remembers that it is how she gave him the save and reset skill. In her final moments, Judith commands Kiska to run, since their opponent is not an easy foe to deal with. Kiska cries for her sake as she lingers in her consciousness. Ageha gets pissed and releases her wrath on Judith's remains. She bashes her head to pieces until there is nothing left of it. Kiska begs her to stop, but he's literally traumatized and can't say a single word. The hero turns to him with a confession, claiming that she loves the boy very much. For this reason, she plunges a blade into his body, reminding him that she'll never forgive Kiska if she discovers he is in love with another woman. Kiska falls to his doom, realizing that he made it this far only to die again. Kiska wakes up wondering how much he remembers. Kiska checks his status skills to discover that he's got absolutely nothing except the basic skills. Everything that he trained for up to this point has been for naught. All of those months of countless training have been undone. The boy succumbs to deeper despair, screaming and wailing. The thought of Judith tortures him even more. Without fail, Kiska gets up to go and see Judith once more. Kiska is hopelessly thinking that she will remember him. When he turns up at the location, he discovers Judith, but she speaks as if she never knew him. Kiska tries his best to trigger something out of her, but Judith doesn't remember anything about him. Kiska is succumbing to despair and realizes he'll have to do everything from the start. Judith asks if he's alright. Kiska gets down on his knees to repeat the process. He wants to start over from scratch, wanting to become her disciple again. Kiska knows that Judith might kill her again, but he's desperate to return as many times as it takes to win her over. The gruesome reality sets in for the boy when he looks up to find what lies beyond his eyes. Judith has been slayed a second time. The one who has killed her is none other than Ageha's haunting self, who reminds the boy of the warning she issued. Kiska fears for his life, while Ageha drives a sword up his neck, stating that she would never forgive him for something like this. Kiska returns to the same treasure room. He now realizes that his connection with Judith has been permanently cut off. Even though he's learned countless things from the vampire, Kiska is forced to never bear a relationship with her again. From this point onwards, Kiska vows to escape the dungeon on his own. He holds Judith grateful for everything she has done for him.